Well, you brought up a very, very touchy subject, and that is sales compensation plans. They're always complex. In fact, I know for sure that I have a 50-page sales compensation plan that has the nuts and the bolts, the this, the that, and it was completely impossible for you to understand how you were going to make money and for you to calculate anything out because they had all kinds of different elements based on all these different products. It was a total disaster. But that having been said, what are the elements of a successful sales compensation plan? And I think I know the benefits, but touch on the benefits for the salesperson and the company.
Sure. The first thing, sort of mirroring that example you just shared, if I was a sales rep and A player interviewing for that company and they gave me a 50-page sales compensation plan, there's an old adage: who you are, what you are, speaks so loudly, of course I can't hear what you're saying. I would take that and I would run. If it's that complex, what are the other internal, external processes? Are they that complex? Is it hard to navigate that organization? But I'm a big believer in a simple 2-page or less sales compensation plan that gives the sales representative their base, and you have to have a meaningful, reasonable base. I am not a believer in being a salary man where you pay them a huge base. You give them a base that can keep the lights on. First 3 months, you may want to consider a non-recoverable draw. So if their total annual earning potential was $200,000, they're on a $100K base, and you give them a 3-month non-recoverable draw of another 50. So at least that first 3 months, they have enough to pay the bills, diaper the kids, etc. Another huge mistake is trying to get A talent on commission only. Multi-level marketing, or some of these, they pad their post or when they're talking to people. Yeah, you have the opportunity for $300,000 a year. However, there's no support. It's straight commission, no benefits. So if you really want to hire and attract A players, you have to have a reasonable base. Consider a 3 or 6 month non-recoverable draw up to 50% of their base salary that allows them to onboard, understand the industry, navigate the organization, and then that draw ends. And then the next piece of that sales compensation plan: what are the KPIs specifically as it relates to revenue or number of new logos or gross profit, gross margin? Be very succinct what that commission structure is for what elements of selling. And that's what their quota is. If it's $1 million or 2 million, and then anything above that quota, you provide accelerators where they can kill their number and make a lot of money. So that's, in my experience, a sales compensation plan that's easy to understand, 2 pages or less, tells them their base, recoverable or non-recoverable draw. I recommend a non-recoverable draw for 3 or 6 months, depending on the sales cycle and how long it'll take this sales professional to get up to speed. Then the draw stops. Then here is your first year objectives, and this is the commission structure, how much you'll be paid. When you achieve that, you have accelerants. And that's how you motivate and attract A players who are not salary men or women, that are not farmers, but are true big game hunters.
Simplistic, easy to understand. And I would add one more thing, Doug, and that is you better tell your salesperson that you're giving them a calculator so that they know as soon as they are looking at a deal and they can start seeing if I sell it for $100,000 versus sell it for $120,000, what that difference looks like in way of compensation. You've got to have that in order to be able to showcase to them the power of what it means to discount and how to sell around those things. Thoughts?
I would agree. And I think the other component to dovetail what you just said is in some sales compensation plans, at the bottom of the second page on the footer, it says, this agreement can be changed with no input from you by the VP of sales or the CEO. If that's in there, I'm probably not going to want to come to work for your company. And I've seen sales compensation plans and employment contracts that have very straightforward, here's your base, here's your draw, here's your KPIs, here are the tranches for accelerators. And a couple of the reps were killing their number and making a lot of money. And the CEO said, they're not going to make that because they're making too much money, sometimes more than the VP of sales or the CEO. If that gets out on the street, you're going to kill your brand and you're not going to attract A players. In an organization and company, nothing happens until somebody sells something. And if you've got very defined KPIs, commissions, gross profit, market, whatever those metrics are, and they adhere to those honestly, ethically, in alignment with their compensation plan and their employment agreement, you should want to write them big checks all the time because the company's making more money as well. I never understood why you'd penalize an A player and penalize them to the point where they say, adios, I'm out of here.
I would say in my 26 years, I don't think I've ever seen a compensation plan that doesn't have the fine print that says the company reserves the right to change this plan at any time. And I know for sure that I've capped out a plan once before and I had to restart the whole plan over again, but they never changed it on me in midway through. So that, I don't think I've ever seen a company say that they reserve the right to change this, because it works both pro and con. There's a positive consequence and there could be a bad consequence. The bad consequence is the example that you gave, but the positive consequence could be we're not paying you enough to be able to incentivize you, so we want to change that so that you can add more to that, right? So I think there's a balance there. That's probably the reason why I've always seen it. I personally have never seen it not there. You're saying you've seen plans that have that not inside there?
I've seen plans that have them in there, and that has been a huge red flag for A players that know they can kill this plan. And as a consequence and terms and conditions for them to come and for employment at this company, in one specific case with an A player, the company removed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, good to know that there have been some plans that are out there. Either way, the point of the matter is whether or not you have it inside there, you don't want to be changing the compensation plan to move the cheese, if you would, away from a seller. That will set them off for sure, and not a good experience. And that's a bad thing that you would see happen. And by the way, as a CEO myself, I hope that I see individuals making more money than me. That is what you are hoping for, right? As the VP of sales, not everybody can be in management, but you decide to go babysit and or coach and or mentor and or whatever you want to call it, whatever role, functional role you've got in leadership. You decided to do that, which means that your compensation is always going to be less than the top performers. And that should be the case inside of any organization. And that's actually in the hiring process. You want to, how many sales reps are making more money than you, Mr. VP of sales or CRO?
You're exactly right, Mario. And, compensation drives behavior. And one of the cardinal mistakes organizations make when they are looking for a sales leader is, what do? They promote their best rep. Sales leadership skills, some are similar to being a quota killer, account executive, but vastly different. And in some organizations that are progressive, some of the top performing sales reps make more than the VP of sales.
And as they should. and as they should.